All right, so the first thing I'm going to do, I have this asset here, and this asset is a Polyperfect asset. It's our farmer guy. And what I'll do is go ahead and select this here. Now, to get it to this part, you would have to actually just right click and go to prefab, and you want to unpack completely. All right, so I've already done that. So the next thing I'll do is take this part here inside of this group. You want to right click on this, not the rig and not the parent, this one here. And this is because this is our actual game object of the mesh here. I'll right click and go to UModelerX here, and you can choose either one. I'll just choose this one, the hierarchy one, and select that there. All right, and then I'll take this mesh and move it out, and then we can just go ahead and delete that. So now we just have our mesh, and now we can edit this guy as much as we like here. So for instance, if I want to give him a long sleeve shirt, so what we can do is go ahead and select the faces of the hand, because what we want to do is actually separate this from the actual body, because if we were to say do that, it's still connected. So in UModeler X, you have a few different options. We have isolate, we have the quantify, we have the detach, and then we have separate parts. Now, what we can do before we even do that, we can select everything. I'm going to hit quantify, and then I'm going to go and select all faces and quantify. Great. And so now you have something a bit more manageable here to actually select your faces, right? It's not going to be all triangulated. So the next thing we want to do is select the hands. So what I'll do is go into this view, and I'll select this arm here like so. And on the other side, I'll just go ahead and select this arm like that. Great. All right, and so now that we have that selected, you just want to make sure that only the arm is selected. Then we can go ahead and hit detach. Now, if you hold down the Alt key, it gives you a couple of different options. You can do 2 element or 2 objects, but I want to actually separate this from this guy. So I'll go ahead and do 2 object. And so I'll hit detach. And so now we have the arms, and then we have the mesh of this character here, just like so. So that's really good. And so now I can actually take this part of his sleeve, select just these vertices, and now I can actually manipulate this here much better, just like so. Great. All right, and so now I can go ahead and I can now work with getting the shirt to kind of be right where I need it. And I can also kind of make this a little smaller and kind of really work with it, whatever we need to do to get this looking pretty good. Now, because this is kind of breaking here, we want to put a few loops in here, right? So what I can do is go down and I'll do a loop cut, and I can add a loop cut here, and we can do 1 loop cut just like so. So that would be nice, and then we can do a loop cut there. And so now I can actually select just those that edge there, and I can kind of do something like this, which will then give me some options here to kind of really make this my own. Great. All right, and then so we can just continue to edit, and now we're just editing as we would any other type of asset if you were working or if you had modeled this yourself. And so now I'm just kind of doing that. All right, and so what I'll do is select this here, and I'll just kind of bring that in just a little bit. Great. All right, and so now we have this arm, and we have a long sleeve there, and we can do the same thing to the other side. I'm not gonna bother doing it. This is just a demonstration of what you can do with this. But once we're done, if you want this to be one full mesh, you can go ahead and combine these objects together. Also, another thing you can do is you see how the arm is deep inside of the sleeve. If you really don't want that, we can delete the faces right up to a certain point. So say, for instance, we don't need to see all of that, so we can do that as well. Great. And so now what I can do is select both the arms because those are full pieces. And of course, I can actually separate these two so I can actually do a detach where the arms are also completely separate from themselves. But for now, I'll select them and the body again, and I can do combine. And now our character is all one piece again, and we can continue to make changes as needed. Now, something else that's really great is that if you do still need to manipulate just the hands, you can select the face, select on the hand, and you can go isolate. And so now we can actually isolate this hand and still only have access to those faces that are connected to just the hand. And that's really nice, right? And we can do the same thing with the other hand as well, since it's still just a separate piece. So we can still do that as well. Great. All right, so another thing we will want to do with our farmer here is maybe change the color of the shirt. All right, so what I can do is select our farmer here. Now, this Polyperfect game object has a material here, and this material is basically a standard material, but what has a really nice color palette. And this color palette allows for various different things. You have your shiny bits here, and on here, it's going to have the your standard colors, and I believe these are also some emission as well. So that's really nice. It's done really well. Now, with that, what we want to do is actually change the color of the shirt. Now, UModeler X has a built-in UV editor, which is really nice. So, very similar to kind of how we manipulated and did with the hand. With this game object, what we want to do is select this guy again. And this time, what we want to do is focus on selecting only the shirt. Now, in some ways, if you do isolate, it's going to select the whole body because right now this whole mesh is all one piece. So what we will need to do is simply select just the shirt itself, and we can go around and start selecting just these pieces like so. So what I'll do is just go ahead and do this, and I'll just continue doing this. And what we want to do is just select all of the faces that are associated with the shirt here. And we'll just make sure all of those pieces are selected, just like so. And it may take a little time, but what we're going to do is once we're done selecting all of these green bits of a shirt, we can also separate this as well. Now, I'm not saying we should do that, but you can do it. So I'll just go ahead and continue selecting all of this here. So as you can see, we're just going and doing a shift, holding down the shift key, and just simply selecting everything in here. So we'll just go ahead and do this, just like so. Great, we're almost there. Selecting that. And I'm just walking through it here, just like so. All right, and we'll just go ahead and get every bit of this guy's shirt, which really looks really nice. It's modeled very well. Because what if we want our farmer to change his shirt color? All right. So that's looking pretty good. Got a couple pieces in here that we want to select. And other than that, I think we're all set. And there. All right, great. So now we have the shirt selected. Looks pretty good, but we want this shirt to be a completely different color. So a couple things we can do. Because we want to make sure that we can select this shirt again, what I can do actually is just go ahead and do a detach. So I'll hit detach again. And so now we have this completely separate from this guy here, just like so, which is nice. Now, if I were to select both of these and do a combine tool, and if I select this here and I do an isolate, now we're isolating this here. And as you can see, we're now able to just kind of select that shirt, which is good. And so now what I'll do is go ahead and do the UV editor. And this is where we're going to do some really cool things with it. I'll just go ahead and do the UV editor here. And because we have those faces selected, this is pretty much where the shirt is here. So we, as you see, we're moving this around to different pieces. And so say we want the main shirt color to be, we can do maybe like a, I don't know, we can do a yellow. We can do something like a yellow. Yellow looks pretty good. It's not too bad. And of course, the original color was this green here. But again, if we want to do this, we can just again do a isolation, and we can actually just select one face, do isolation, and then we can just start moving those faces around as needed. So if we want the shirt to then be blue instead of green, we can do that. And so now we have a farmer with a nice blue shirt. Great. Now, if you want to change this white section under here, that's easy enough, right? So what we can do is we don't have to do a separate or a detach since those are only a couple different faces. We simply select the faces, go into the UV editor, and we can move those to another location. So maybe we want them to have a black shirt underneath this blue shirt. So we just go there, and there you have it. So now we have a farmer with a blue shirt with a black undershirt, which is really cool. All right. And of course, we can go a step further. We can select the hat, and let's see, depending on how everything was designed, in this case, the hat is separate from the character there. So we could simply deselect the faces that we don't want, and we can just go in, select everything up here. And so now only these faces are selected. We can then go back to our UV editor and change the cat color. So we can go to something like a blue, and now we have a blue hat with a blue shirt, which is great. Now we do have an issue here, and so we can go ahead and fix that. So in terms of our overalls here, as you can see, a piece of our overalls is not in the same space. We could do an isolate for the overalls, and then we can deselect the boots so that we don't have the same color boots as the pants. So we can do a hold down control in selection. There you go. And so now we have just the overall selected. And so now I'm just going to go ahead and move the overalls colors to something else. Now this one's a little different. So what I'll do with the overalls is simply do a inside of our UV editor, you have some additional choices here. And this is a full UV editor. You can do full unwrapping. And so I want to go ahead and do we can do a cube, or we can do a plane, and we can do it based on normal, or we can just do it based on view. So if I click unwrap, there's our overalls there. And since we're only doing solid colors, what we can do is simply reduce the size of these overalls, just like so. And we can kind of move these overalls into another colored section, like so. Great. And so now our overalls should be another color. We can make them blue. We can actually make them more of a, maybe like a darker blue over here. Something like, it's like a blue jean type of color. So that's really nice. Great. So I'll go ahead and close this. And so now we actually have a whole farmer here ready to go. And looks like the shirt itself could use some changes here. So let me go ahead and edit that as well. Do isolate and then go back to our UV editor just to see what's going on. And that's just because it's in these color sections. So what you can do with this is do a similar thing. We can do a view unwrap. And as you can see, that's what that looks like. So what I'll do here is I can simply reduce the size of this shirt, zoom in a little bit with the F key, and we can just keep going until we get to a size that we're comfortable with, and then we can move these into a position. So again, if we want these faces to be a particular shirt color, we can just move them there, and there you have it. And so now we have that. Of course, I didn't have this selected here, but you get the gist of that. And so now we have a shirt that is a different color. We have the different color overalls, and we could do boots as well. But again, it's really nice. And again, if we want to actually do that, we can just, again, continue to isolate and make sure everything is selected in this case. And then we can just redo the unwrap there just like that. And we can just simply move all of these guys where we want them to be. It's really easy. And again, I just want to make sure that everything is exactly how we expect it to be. So I'll just move these here and bring it really small into this section. And there you go.